Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else that I kind of want to. Well, I put a focus on my mental health, which has been in shambles for years. Now, this week I am going to talk about the Commander Sealed, the 2022 Commander Sealed. But first, I would like to tell you the main reason I didn't release a episode last week talking about this is I was extremely busy. My sister's wedding was on Saturday. We were doing setup for that on Friday after work. And then on Sunday, I had 2 teeth pulled. And that's been... I'm still not fully recovered from it, but I'm getting there. Now, as far as the Commander 2022 Sealed event goes, it's been amazing to me watching it grow into what it has and imagining where it can go. I've been to every one of these events, and I think the first one was 24 people, and then the second one was 64 people, and then this one was around 300 people. And that's amazing. I will say there are some growing pains to this. The first one being finding a venue that's, well, I'm just going to say air conditioned. And I do know that there were some people there that did not understand the spirit of we're doing this for charity and we're just kind of in it for their own value. To those people, I respectfully say, go touch grass. We raised around $14,000 for the Trevor Project. That, in and of itself, is what that event is about. It's not about spiking a tournament. It's not about making money back. It's about helping those in need and having fun while doing it. Now, I do think the main issue I had was just the venue. It didn't help that during the event I was exhausted because I've been running nonstop for the last few months, just trying to get my life together. And the week before that, my car had been dead, and I wasn't even sure I was going to make it there. So I was coming off of the stress of that. And yeah. Overall, the event was a great time. I do hope that next year we can find an area that's a little more comfortable. Possibly with chairs that I don't think are going to break under me. That's yet. All in all, had a good time. I did bow out during the third game, mostly because I was starting to feel like crap and really just wanted to get home and crawl into bed and pass out. So that's what I did. So I would say hopefully next time we can get some more people, some more of the bigger name people to show up. I did, on Twitter, mention to the Commander Sealed account that some of the people I would like to see reached out to were Quiver Time and the Professor. Just people that I think are really going to spread the attendance to a larger audience. And yeah, all in all, it was a great week. And yeah, that's about all I can say about it. Even for how stressed I was, had a great time. Now, I am going to, in the next part of this, go over the deck I ended up building and how I got to the deck that I built. So I will be right back. I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff. Believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And welcome back. Now, the way the deck building actually worked is everyone was assigned to a table with 3 other people. Then your table was paired with a second table of 4 people, and that was considered your quote-unquote pod. Now, what this meant is as you were opening your packs and deciding what you wanted to do, you could also trade with people within those 2 tables. And I'll get to that more when I get to what I did trade for my deck. So opening my packs, I started with some of the more interesting packs and then moved into some of the more mundane packs. So, while I was opening, my first thought was, man, I have some really good white cards and some really good black cards, so maybe I'll see if I can find a black-white commander. And the first one I came across was Elenda the Duskrose from Double Masters 2. 2, a white and a black for a 1/1 Vampire Knight with lifelink. Whenever another creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on her. And when she dies, you create X 1/1 vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is Elenda's power. And then shortly after pulling her, I found Lisa, I don't know, Shroud of Dusk. She is a 5/5 angel for 2 white, black. And then rather than pay 2 for each previous time you cast a spell from your command zone, this game, pay 2 life that many times. It has flying, lifelink, and whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. For a long time, she was the front runner in my pool for who I was going to build. She was from the original Commander Legends. But then I got to my new Capenna pack, and I pulled Rafine, Scheming Seer. It's a 1/4 Sphinx Demon for white, blue, black. It has flying in Ward 1, and whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. And then that kind of opened up the way for me to go into Esper. And that was supported fairly heavily by just what I was pulling. So, I ended up with a Clearwater Pathway, which adds blue, and it has the flip side of Murkwater Pathway, which adds black. I had 2 board wipes with Slaughter the Strong, which is 1 white for a sorcery. Each player chooses any number of creatures they control with total power 4 or less. They sacrifice the rest. And then I also had a Temporary Lockdown, which is 1 white for a enchantment, and when it enters, you exile all non-land permanents, mana cost 2 or less, until it leaves the battlefield. And that kind of started the basis for what I was looking at. But then I also ended up with stuff like Dorothea, Vengeful Victim, which is a white and a blue for a 4/4 spirit. She has flying, and whenever she attacks or blocks, you sacrifice it at the end of combat, and it has Disturb for 1 white, blue. And it becomes Dorothea's Retribution. It's an aura. You enchant a creature. The enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, you make a 4/4 spirit creature token with flying that's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice it at the end of combat. If it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. We ended up with a moderation. It's 1 white-blue for an enchantment. You can't cast more than one spell each turn. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a card. I felt like this would go good with Raffine because, for the most part, if you want to get your creatures big, you're going to be discarding your non-land cards anyways. Now, I do want to bring up the trading at this point, because it was amazing to see how people were willing to trade powerful spells if they knew they were not going to be in that color. Which is how I ended up with Thalia, Guardian of Thraben for 1 and a white. She is a 2/1 human soldier with first strike. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. And how I ended up with Teferi Time Raveler. 1 white-blue for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker Teferi. Each opponent can only cast spells anytime they can cast a sorcery. +1 until your next turn. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. And -3 is return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand and draw a card. So I kind of had this amalgamation of cards that go well with my commander, powerful creatures, and then like cheap flyers. So I ended up with stuff like Duskmangler, which is a 5 black 5/4 horror. As an additional cost, you sacrifice a creature, discard a card, or pay 4 life, and then when it enters, each opponent does all 3 of those. And yeah, so it just kind of turned into a play things, attack, get things into the graveyard, and then recur them with things like Summon Undead, which is 4 and a black for a sorcery. You may mill 3 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Graceful Restoration is 3 white-black for a sorcery. You choose one. You either return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, or you may return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Forever Young is 1 and a black for a sorcery. Put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library and draw a card. And Cauldron's Gift. 4 and a black for a sorcery. It has Adamant. If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast the spell, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. You may choose a creature card in your graveyard. If you do, return it to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah. Now, I will say where the deck kinda, sorta lost a bit of its luster is I only had 1 counter spell, and that was Memory Drain. 2 blue for an instant, counter a spell, scry 2. So I kind of wanted, like, I would have been happier with 2 to 4 counter spells just because there was a lot going on. That's just how Sealed works. But I did end up with, like, Blood Pact, which is 2 and a black for an instant to draw 2, lose 2. I had a Decanter of Endless Water, which is a 3-mana rock. Taps to add any color, and you have no maximum hand size. I ended up with an Oji, the Exquisite Blade. 2 white-blue for a 2/3 human monk. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and scry 2. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you can exile a creature you control and return to the battlefield. Yeah, and it just kind of... I'll give you a quick spoiler. I did not actually win any games because my commander was kind of scary. But when I was building the deck, I kind of was like, how many flyers can I get in Esper? So I ended up with Mole Drifter, which is 4 and a blue for an 2/2 flying elemental. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards, or you can evoke it for 2 and a blue. Even Surveyor is 3 blue for a 2/2 bird scout with flying. When Aven Surveyor enters the battlefield, you either put a counter on the Surveyor or return a creature to its owner's hand. Advanced Stitchwing is 3 blue for a 3/4 zombie horror with flying. You can pay 2 and a blue and discard 2 cards to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Skulking Ghost is 1 and a black for a 2/1 spirit with flying. When it becomes the target of a spell or ability, you sacrifice it. Kitchen Imp is probably the most synergistic card I have in the deck. It's 3 and a black for a 2/2 imp with flying and haste, but it also has madness for a black. We have Noxious Dragon, 4 black for a 4/4 dragon with flying. When it dies, you can destroy a creature with a converted mana cost 3 or less. Battlefly Swarm is a single black mana for a 1/1 Phyrexian insect with flying, and for a black against Death Touch. Eye Collector is a single black mana for a 1/1 fairy with flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. And then we have our big ol' heavy-hitting Serra's Emissary. 4 white for a 7/7 angel with flying. As Serra's Emissary enters the battlefield, choose a card type. Me and creatures I control have protection from the chosen card type. Yeah. I guess the one card I want to bring up as kind of like the end to like this quick little here's what I played is I pulled a Sword of Sinew and Steel. 3 mana, equipment, has equip 2. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from black and red. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact. Were the planeswalkers super everywhere? No. Did I get to blow up a Minsc and Boo with this? Yes. And I actually had the Sword of Sinew and Steel on Raffine twice. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave it there. It was a fun deck. I had been debating building a Raffine deck for a while, and I think I might. To that end, like I've also been thinking about, Lysa and Elenda as possible commanders for things that do things differently to what I've done in the past. All in all, I had a great time, even if everybody else didn't. Yes, I was very worn out by the end of it, but a lot of that's also just because I was very worn out at the beginning of it. All in all, we had a great time. And I hope next year we can do it bigger, better, and preferably somewhere with air conditioning. That would probably be great. But yeah, I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.